Hello, everyone, and welcome to VerseFest, our transatlantic showcase. Bienvenue à VerseFest. Bonjour. Today is Sunday, our final day of the festival, and we're very excited to have our transatlantic showcase for you today with four fantastic, exceptional poets. We've got Victoria Kennefic and David Wheatley joining us from Ireland, or in the case of David, I guess, in Aberdeen. And we have Radna Fabius from the Netherlands and Jean-Philippe Cazier from France. So welcome to you all. My name is David O'Mara. I'm your co-host for this event, and I'm teaming up with Eric Charlebois, who you'll meet momentarily following our first reading. VerseFest is located in Ottawa, Ontario, the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. So I want to acknowledge that and thank them. I also want to thank all of our sponsors. Please take a look at the festival website. There's a full list of the sponsors for the festival, as well as all the organizers and the volunteers. It's been a wonderful festival, and I'm very happy that we're here at 1 o'clock today. We're going to start with Dublin-born poet David Wheatley. He's the author of 5 collections of poetry, most recently The President of Planet Earth, which was put out with Carcanet in the UK and Wake Forest Press in the US. David teaches at the University of Aberdeen, where he lives. He doesn't live at the university, he lives in Aberdeen, Scotland. He is also kept busy through his criticism and articles as a regular contributor to The Guardian, the Times Literary Supplement, and the London Review of Books, among other journals. With Alva Darcy, he recently co-edited the Cambridge History of Irish Women's Poetry, and his debut novel, Stretto, is forthcoming. When I read David's poems, I think of the idea of expression in its wider sense, to speak well, to capture something fittingly, of language's adaptability to meaning and effect. David's poetry is meticulously and robustly attuned to the effects and subtleties of language. His versatility is enhanced by a deep sense of range in both the possibilities of poetics and the breadth of cultural history it is immersed and in dialogue with. So please welcome David Wheatley.
Many, many thanks for that kind introduction, David. C'est un grand plaisir d'être ici ce soir, to be here or not quite here. I'll get started with something French. You found me like a pebble picked up on the shore, like a strange lost object whose use no one knows for sure, like seaweed on a sextant deposited by the tide, like fog at a window, asking only to come inside, like a midden of a hotel room no one has cleaned, the morning after a hoolie when the streets and gutters stream, a train traveller bumming a ride, sat on the running board, a stream in the field sly river folk have managed to divert, a woodland creature passing cars have frozen in their glare, like a night watchman coming to at the bright dawn hour, like a shady prison dream that morning can't diffuse, like the panic of a bird flapping in the house, like on a lover's finger the signs of a wedding band, the burnt out shell of a car in some no man's land, like a torn up letter scattered to the four winds, like now summer's flown, the tan it's left on your hands, like the glum looks of the lost and the misplaced paths we weave, like the left luggage bags you're planning to retrieve, like when a door or a shutter in the breeze go whack, the furrows of heart and tree alike where lightning struck, a roadside stone that stands in for the memories we lose, pain that doesn't fade away, not like some old bruise, like some boat's vain SOS floated over the waves, like long afterwards the flesh's memory of the blade, like a bolted horse slaking his thirst in a ditch, like a pillow fever crops of nightmares have bewitched, like an insult to the sky with the straw blindfold on, like fury at there being nothing new under the sun. You found me in the dark, like a word reduced to babble, like a vagabond bedded down to sleep in the stable, like a dog with someone else's name on his collar, a man from days of yore, full of spleen and choler. I said I was going to start with something French. Good to start with a bit of oomph, I think, but that's not by me. That's a translation from the French of Louis Aragon. Now, today I found myself driving through the Cairngorm Mountains, that massive subarctic plateau in central northern Scotland. And I thought of the great writer Nan Shepherd and her book, The Living Mountain, about that part of the country. And it's a very distinctive flora and fauna. And this is my poetic tribute to Nan Shepherd. It's called To Nan Shepherd in the Cairngorms. You will not be finding a thing, but in the place where it will be. You will not be losing a thing, but in the place where it's not. Spinning the compass, confounding available coordinates, these great gashes in the field of the sky, and the red over grey of the feldspar quarries where Saxifrage, the rock breaker, lifts white flags of defiance, and Arctic flowers glow from their brush with the ice age. When the boy died in the snowdrift, he was found on his knees, as though in a posture of prayer. The snow god will swallow you whole and leave you untouched. The peak we approach through the cloud is not this peak, but the next one. The mountain we stand on is not this one, but the next. I'm just going to escort a 5-year-old out of the room now. So just go back over here. I'll see you in a few minutes. Thank you. Well, there's been historically a great pattern of migration from Ireland to Scotland, maybe most famously with St. Columkill in the 6th century. And the next poem is called The Companions of Columkill, referencing his friends who came with him and fanned out over the country, evangelizing the Picts. But I also cut from there to the 17th century and a period of fantastically complex religious warfare. I mentioned a group called the Covenanters, who were a party to a conflict in the 1640s in Aberdeen and Aberdeenshire, the Companions of Columkill. If I never go home, it is because the tides, I have noticed, flow in one direction only. With Viking anger, the North Sea snapped at my heels on the foreshore as I marveled at its circling, patterned collapse, the golden spiral in my Euclid turning before my eyes. When the Covenanter who led me arrived at the city gates, he would not pay the king's penny to cross the bridge, but stood transfixed by those swithering waters. The road was closed, he told me. We would have to go back. I saw the long-beaked oyster catchers gazing down from their nests along the flat roofs, and knew this for the place where Devenick, Turnan, and Drosten had passed before me, drawn ever further north and east. I swore an oath at the market cross to a man who answered to the Earl of Montrose, and a prayer book was placed in my hand. Much later, when the peace was won, bodies decently buried were exhumed and despoiled, marking an end to it all. I attempted to read the Psalms in the vernacular, but did not know what language that was. If you throw out a hand in the dark of the chapel, a door to the bell tower will be there, and a view from above that promised once, not now, to make everything clear. Now, now that I'm safely restored to Scotland, I can get back to contemplating Ireland from a distance, which perhaps is the safest or best way to regard the land of my birth, for me at least. So here's a poem about Ireland called To Loch Tay. We have lochs in Scotland and Ireland, we just spell them differently. A poem of memory then about County Wicklow in Ireland, where I'm from. To Loch Tay. Can I come in? Asks the cat at the door. At this or that, but always the same one door, regardless where on this earth we have dragged her behind us. Loch Tay, old Wicklow puddle, can I come in again, enter your waters, where a cat might fish by trailing a hand in these and these small elsewheres, the mill pond over the hill, the mackerel's back of a loch seen from the car, cold waters breaking against what far foreign shore. A goat scales your sheer basin, Loch Tay, and falling, the scree rebounds over the waves to rattle around the skull of whoever is there, and my skull too. Slow, but at last, delayed echoes of blank-eyed Wicklow goats on the move reach me, and the skin of that thin umbrella memory, blowing off, lands again in the overflown well of your crinkled blaze of light. Just two more poems now. This year has been the 400th anniversary of the birth of Andrew Marvell, and the great 17th century poet born in Hull, where I used to live myself. And I do find myself haunted by the landscapes of the Humber estuary, as mentioned in his famous poem to his coy mistress. So this is my attempt to paint a verse portrait of Andrew Marvell, a very difficult man to get into focus. There's a painting of him in Hull, which is called, and I take my title from it, a Portrait of a Man Thought to be Andrew Marvell. He himself was thought to have spent some time working as a spy in Holland in, I think, the 1660s. The twist is that he seems to have, in fact, been working for the Dutch, not for the English. He was trying to engineer the elevation of William of Orange to the English throne, which did happen, but only after his death. So, Portrait of a Man Thought to be Andrew Marvell. As one put drunk into a Humber keel, taking his chance in high tides surge and swell, though soaked through, I feel my palms grow clammy at the thought of Winestead sliding from me. My mind is sand, the channels that it tills, the mazy secret kingdoms that it builds. Albion's high towers in shadow now, infesting prelates their dark plumage show, until a man might keep a blade concealed about himself, for who knows what dark need. Such a man as Mr. George, who crossed with me to Holland on some special tryst and pressed on me a pamphlet much inclined to warnings on fair liberty's decline. Nameless men I meet in coffee houses keep their wide brims pulled down on their faces, riddling where the root of power might lie, in pope or potentate, or must it die, if not for their great secret work in hand? The lords at home will learn of what they plan. Take signs for wonders. Apocalypse engulfed the great gunpowder keg one day in Delft. I saw Finch land stunned on a wall bracket. The fabric of reality had cracked, and I gone through it. My alias grown vague, I meet a king in waiting in the Hague, whose name it is not politic to share, in whom are wed divine right and forced power. The man once thought to be Marvell purses his lips at all these tragedies and farces, and Mr. George picks up a little Dutch for use at cards, the fish house, or at church, and opening new channels of accord to pass on what the lords at home report. But whose will be the kingdom still in shade, the guests for whom the still life feast is laid? The battle scenes show how the navy warred, the faces on the frigates faint and blurred, but a girl with a lute or posed with a terrier unseals the space of an interior, strange privacies reclaimed like a polder from an outgrown frame that cannot hold her. And I, unmoored, whether I leave or stay, feel the ground shift and England slip away. And the last poem I'd like to read to you is called Long Slide, which I hope is fairly self-explanatory. I have two young children, so I've spent my share of time in soft play centres. The only thing that needs commenting on is that, well, the title, I suppose, echoes Philip Larkin's line about young people forever going down the long slide to happiness. I am galumphing around the soft play centre like something from Bruegel the Elder's peasant wedding, all food-stained flapping jumper and odd socks, conjoined boisterously with the toddler I carry, like bagpipes, and locked in a tuneless circling dance with fellow parents and their flailing loads. Flemish weddings could go on for rather a long time, celebrations stopping only to restart, and after enough circuits, the child in your arms may morph into another, just as a first pancake may lead to a second. It is unclear where the husband in Bruegel's painting has wandered off to, or if he is present at all. But I am distracted, the toddler has crawled away, and a war cry from the play tower and slide has me fearing the worst, before her emergence, swamp monster-like, from the coloured balls pit, and I am reminded there is, in fact, no wrong way to go down that slide. So merci bien d'avoir entendu et écouté. Many, many thanks for listening to that, and I'll hand you back to David.
Hey, thank you so much, David. David, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Can you hear the background voice here? That's Isaac. David, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Living, gazing across life. Thank you so much. Okay, so here he is, coming to say hi. Say hello, David. E a todo mundo. All right. Thank you so much. Our next poet, Jean-Philippe Casier.
Moi, je suis trop gênée.
C'est correct. Poète et écrivain français. Auteur de nombreux textes de fiction, Jean-Philippe collabore également aux revues Inventaire-Invention, Caoïd, Inculte, Concept, Chimère et Diacritique, et a publié des études autour notamment de Gilles Deleuze, Félix Guattari, Michel Foucault, Jacques Derrida et Henri Michaud. Il a réalisé des traductions d'œuvres de Jorge Sanchines, Maria Galindo, Mujeres Creando, Blanca Viet-Kurter et Cathy Acker. Il est membre du comité de rédaction de la revue Chimère et co-rédacteur en chef du magazine Diacritique. Jean-Philippe Casier, à toi.
Merci Eric pour cette présentation. Est-ce que tu m'entends bien? Est-ce que tout le monde m'entend bien? Oui? Ok. Je voudrais lire des extraits d'un livre qui a été publié en 2020 par les éditions Lanskin. Le livre s'intitule Europe Odyssée et c'est un livre qui a pour thème les migrants en Europe et la façon aussi très indigne dont les États européens traitent les migrants sans papier actuellement. Le livre n'est pas composé de poèmes différents, mais c'est un long poème d'une 50aine de pages, donc je voudrais en lire deux extraits, un assez bref et l'autre un tout petit peu plus long. Donc le premier extrait. Il s'appelle Maher Younes, il a 27 ans. Il est né au Liban. Il vit dans un camp qu'il appelle la tombe des vivants. Il y a des Syriens, des Bangladais, il y a des gens de partout ici. On appelle ce camp la tombe des vivants, car on n'y vit pas vraiment, c'est comme une prison. On ne peut pas en sortir pour se balader. C'est une tombe à ciel ouvert. Il parle de la Palestine. Il s'appelle Maher Moufid Sadek. Pendant la guerre des camps, il a été tué. Il a 17 ans. Il dit qu'il veut partir en Suède. Il dit qu'il n'y a rien pour lui ici, qu'il n'a aucun droit, pas de travail. Les murs des maisons sont de zinc et d'argile. Les maisons sont construites sur des fondations fragiles. Les maisons pourraient s'écrouler. Il dit « Tout ce que l'on construit s'effondre ». Il s'appelle Abou Hussein El-Weti. Il a été touché par plusieurs balles au visage. Il dit « Nous sommes dans une prison ». Il dit que le bateau est parti loin des maisons, que les larmes coulent sur les deux joues. Il chante « Que Dieu te protège et tous ceux que tu aimes ». Il fume une cigarette. Il s'appelle Mohamed Younes. Il a 25 ans. Ça, c'est un extrait du livre que Eric a traduit, que Eric a eu la gentillesse de traduire en anglais, qui peut être, la traduction peut être lue sur le site du festival. Un deuxième extrait maintenant, un petit peu plus long. C'était à Casablanca en 1962. Du linge suspendu séché au soleil au bord de la route. Une femme voilée regardait la route. Un homme vendait des fruits au bord de la route. Un ruisseau de boue coule au milieu de la rue. Nous étions à Casablanca, au Maroc. Nous vivions dans des conditions dégradantes. Nous étions des milliers. Les enfants partout dans les rues, sur la route, devant les maisons. Les enfants regardaient la route. Ils disent « Nos salaires étaient des salaires de misère. Nous étions les bidonvilles de l'Empire européen. » Ils disent « Les gens partageaient la misère. La misère était le bien commun. La terre ne pouvait pas tous nous nourrir et certains sont partis pour toujours. » Ils disent « C'était à Istanbul. Les hommes attendaient de pouvoir partir en Allemagne. Nous étions la main-d'œuvre pour les usines allemandes. Les employeurs allemands venaient en Turquie choisir leurs futurs employés. Les médecins allemands nous ont examinés. Ils ont examiné nos dents. Nous n'avons pas été bien accueillis en Allemagne. On nous disait que notre emploi en Allemagne devait profiter à l'Allemagne et à nous, mais c'est surtout l'Allemagne qui en a profité. Ce sont les usines allemandes qui ont profité de nous. Elles ont fait du profit grâce à nous. Nous étions la réserve de main-d'œuvre, exportée en Allemagne comme des marchandises. Tu avais 24 ans. Le patron allemand t'a dit que la sélection était sévère, qu'il savait qu'elle était sévère, qu'il fallait te soumettre à des tests psychotechniques, que c'est ce qu'un patron devait faire. Que c'est ce qu'un patron devait faire pour avoir de bons outils de travail. Ils disent, en Hollande, nous avons fabriqué les trains confortables que prenaient les voyageurs hollandais et européens. Tu dis qu'on t'a fait lire un texte, mais tu ne l'as pas bien lu. On t'a demandé pourquoi tu voulais partir à l'étranger. Tu as dit que tu voulais travailler, mais on ne t'a pas vraiment cru. On t'a dit que tu devais bien travailler et avoir un bon comportement dans la rue. Tu dis que vous veniez du Maroc, de Yougoslavie, de Turquie, d'Espagne, que vous étiez des travailleurs achetés par l'Allemagne, l'Angleterre, la France. Vous étiez nécessaires à ces pays pour que ces pays restent riches, deviennent encore plus riches. Des milliers d'hommes montaient dans les trains et faisaient avec la main des signes de revoir ou adieu. Tu dis que les hommes chantaient dans le train et tapaient dans leurs mains. Des milliers étaient déjà partis et vous alliez les rejoindre. Milliers de Yougoslaves, de Turcs, de Grecs. Les hommes jouaient aux cartes dans le train et fumaient des cigarettes. Tu t'appelais Salos Antonios. Tu avais 35 ans, tu étais ouvrier. Tu regardais la mer à travers la fenêtre du wagon, les plages abandonnées sous la pluie. Tu regardais les arbres sans feuilles. Ils disent, nous avons travaillé dans les usines françaises. Nous pensions que nous allions avoir une belle vie. Ils disent, nous sommes partis de Rome, de Naples. Nous avons été achetés par l'Allemagne. Nous avons vécu dans les villes industrielles allemandes. Nous étions des gens modestes, ordinaires. Nous voulions gagner de quoi vivre. Nous ne parlions pas la langue allemande et les Allemands ne parlaient pas notre langue. Lorsque nous sommes arrivés à la gare, nous ne savions pas où aller ni quoi faire. Nous avons demandé où aller et quoi faire, mais personne ne comprenait ce que nous disions. Nous étions des immigrés et nous n'avions pas de maison. Nous n'avions pas de langue, pas de langage. Dans le quartier de West End, les Blancs nous ont pourchassés parce que nous étions noirs et pauvres. Les gens riaient et nous frappaient, et certains ont essayé d'incendier notre immeuble. On s'entassait dans 11 pièces très petites, que nous louions très cher. Nous étions 30 Marocains à habiter dans 11 pièces très petites. Tu dis que tu as cherché dans la rue où tu pouvais habiter et que tu as trouvé un hôtel meublé. Vous habitiez à 6 dans une chambre. Tu dis qu'en 1966, vous habitiez à Gennevilliers. Vous étiez dans des baraques en bois recouvertes de bâches. Vous étiez dans des baraques en parpaing et ciment. Tu dis que le sol était de la boue. Tu dis que vous n'aviez pas de travail ni d'argent. Tu ne savais pas comment faire pour vivre sans argent. Tu dis que vous étiez de plus en plus nombreux à vivre comme ça, dans la merde. Le soir, vous écoutiez de la musique, vous chantiez et vous dansiez et vous fumiez des cigarettes. Vous dites que sans vous, l'industrie européenne se serait écroulée. On vous accuse d'être sale. On dit que votre cuisine sent mauvais. On dit que vous prenez le travail des vrais Finlandais et des Allemands que les gens ont peur. On dit que l'on ne parle pas aux Turcs, que l'on n'a aucun contact avec eux. On dit que les Turcs doivent parler comme tout le monde, que s'ils vivent en Allemagne, ils doivent parler la langue allemande. Et que pour cette raison, tu te tais. Tu demandes comment dire que tu te sens seul. Tu dis comme n'importe qui, nous construisons l'histoire de l'humanité. Tu dis nous n'avons jamais tué personne. Tu dis qu'à Rotterdam, des jeunes blancs ont essayé de mettre le feu à ton immeuble. Tu dis qu'ils applaudissaient, qu'ils riaient en mettant le feu à ton immeuble. Tu le dis qu'ils ont lancé des pierres contre la façade de l'immeuble et ont brisé toutes les vitres des fenêtres. Tu dis que tout ça se passait dans un pays démocratique. Tu chantes une chanson sur ton exil, tu chantes adieu, adieu à tous, que Dieu est ton seul compagnon, que tu suis ton chemin et qui sait. Tu dis que peut-être tu t'en iras bientôt, mais tu ne sais pas. Tu dis où est-ce que je me sens vraiment chez moi? Tu dis je n'ai pas de réponse à cette question, que tu n'as pas d'autre horizon que de ne pas savoir. De jeunes adolescents étaient dans la rue et regardaient les passants. L'un d'eux avait une cigarette entre ses doigts. Un jeune garçon faisait de la mobilette dans la cour de la cité HLM. C'était à Marseille en 1983. Du linge étendu au balcon séchait au soleil. C'était à Bradford ou à Stockholm. Il ne s'est installé dans aucune langue. Comment donner une voix au silence? Peu importe ce qu'il écrit, sa mère est toujours tuée d'une balle dans la nuque. Il est avant tout apatride. Il dit qu'il vaut mieux bégayer que parler. À Stuttgart, il a le souvenir des morts. Il ne sait pas leur nom. Il est avant tout apatride, y compris dans la langue, sa propre langue, au nom des morts. À qui s'adresser lorsque l'on ne parle pas? Avec qui parler lorsque l'on n'a aucune langue? Il parle toujours des forêts, celles de son enfance. Il se souvient que les policiers frappaient les étudiants. Sur sa tombe, il y a des pierres, des herbes sauvages, des cailloux. Voilà, merci.
Merci infiniment, Jean-Philippe.
Merci à toi.
Tu m'entends? Merci, Jean-Philippe. À travers la guerre et son reliquat, nous construisons l'humanité, n'est-ce pas? Jean-Philippe, thank you so much. So through war and what will ever be left of it, we keep building humankind. Thank you so much, Jean-Philippe.
Merci à toi, Eric.
So we're here to our fourth and final reader today, and I'm here to welcome Victoria Kenefick, whose poetry has been published in all over the place in esteemed journals such as Poetry, the Poetry Review, PN Review, Poetry Ireland Review, The Stinging Fly, the Irish Times, Ambit, and elsewhere. She was named as an Arts Council of Ireland Next Generation Poet, and her award-winning pamphlet, White Whale, was published by Southward Editions in 2015. Victoria's first full collection, Eat or We Both Starve, was published this year with Carcanet Press and has been shortlisted for the 2021 T.S. Eliot Poetry Prize. It's no wonder. Through a series of candid elemental monologues, Eat or We Both Starve is rich with memorable images. Employing vigorous diction, Victoria's poems are both fragile and forceful, knife-sharp and opulent, rewarding the reader with a compelling and complex declaration of self. Please welcome Victoria Kenefick.
Hello there. What a gorgeous introduction. Thank you so much, David. And I'm so delighted to be here in Ottawa virtually as part of VerseFest. I'd much prefer to be in Ottawa this evening than in Tralee in County Kerry. I was going to say County Cork. That's where I'm from originally. in Ireland. I've been to your beautiful city once. I think I was about 12 at the time, and it was one of my first experiences of being in a skyscraper up very, very high. So I have a really clear memory of that. And my father actually lived in Canada, and I think partly in Ottawa, for 14 years before I was born. So my 3 elder siblings were born there, and my older brother still lives in Toronto. So Canada is a very special part of my family's story. And I know my dad, he died in 2010. I know he'd be really pleased and really chuffed that I was reading for you tonight. So thank you so much to David and to Monty for making this happen. It really is such a lovely opportunity, and I'm really grateful. I'm going to start with a poem that actually isn't in the book. The reason being, I suppose I've been really taken with all of the discussion and the difficulties around everything that emerged from COP26 in Glasgow, and it's been in the news. And obviously, you know, there's the continuing pandemic, and all that implies we're kind of in a difficult situation here in Ireland at the moment with growing numbers despite having high vaccination. So I feel that that's obviously a very pressing issue, but behind that, this like gaping hole of climate change. And I wrote this poem for, I was commissioned to write it for an anthology of poetry and prose that was published this year by Dura Press called Empty House, edited by Alice Kinsella and Nessa O'Mahony. And it's all about writers engaging with climate change. And this poem is for my daughter, who was 2 at the time when the pandemic started and is now 4. On being 2 in the Anthropocene. I am a sea and you are a bird. You're not a baby, but a big girl holding my face in your soft little claws. You are a lark and you are singing, hello, mama and baby, or big girl rocking like we used to. You are a bird, a baby bird, all cozy, only to leap off my lap nest and blow kisses to house spiders. I'm not scared of them, you say. I'm not scared of them either, I parrot. I think that's what you're supposed to do, echo them. We like spiders, I say. They live with us. I have diligently shown you their webs hugging corners of cloudy windows. Beyond our little thumbprint of garden lies unmowed. It is the bugs' house, we must not squash them, you say. And butterflies, why do they wear makeup, Mama? I am conscious then of my face, of what I hide with my face. All summer, your chubby cheeks are slicked white with sunscreen. There's your hat tossed like a petal on the grass. The neighbours pass. We explain our untended plot is intentional. They smile tightly and nod. We tell the caretaker to skip our patch. I still run after you, pick things up. When you nap, I watch the snip, snip, snip. When you don't, we walk slow loops around the wetlands. I get sad when they cut the grass, you pipe up, your hand glued to mine. I do too, I say. That is a magpie, one for sorrow, always wave it away. You are tired. I carry you. I imitate lark sounds. It is not enough. The nests are empty. I get sad when hedgerows are ripped out like insulation from a rotting house. I get sad as earth becomes sea. I get sad that in showing you this sinking world, I am teaching you how to say goodbye to it. Speaking of sinking and water, I'm very lucky that I suppose Ireland being an island, obviously lots of us live by the sea, and I'm very lucky that I grew up by the sea in Shanagary in County Cork, beautiful coastline there. And where I live now in Tralee, just out the window actually, I have a really lovely view of the sea. So it's something I think when you grow up by the sea, and maybe some of you can relate, it's something that you always need to be close to and something that almost gives you a context. And I always feel like a lucky escape. And this is about, I suppose, playing by the sea. My favourite game to play as a child was dolls. And my daughter also enjoys a good game of dolls. And I've been reminded, I suppose, how powerless children are in many respects. You know, we send them to school, we you know, tell them when to eat and when to get up as best we can. But really they take out all of that frustration on their toys and that need for power and that maybe desire to control everything. So dolls are the unfortunate casualties of that. So this is called doll game. I enjoyed nodding my Barbies' heads vigorously, so the toggle allowing them to bow broke each molded neck, the sound of the crack reassuring. I collected the shards in a small velvet purse, pushed the heads down hard on the splintered stumps to recapitate. Each Barbie necklace, but alive. Then I chopped off their hair with the safety scissors and presented such a doll to my sister on her birthday. She stripped her naked as a newborn, brought her to the beach to baptize her. It wasn't cold. My birthday too, I carried my box fresh Barbie tight in my small white fist, encouraged her to look up and down, back and forth along the sand, testing her. The tan plastic that made her, I tugged at her blonde strands, already loose. Though I pointed out my sister to her on the shoreline, her long hair whipping round her head, a tiny storm. Though I gestured out to sea, to the necklace doll's head bobbing in the grey November waves, she didn't blink. As I said, I'm from Shanagarry in County Cork, and during the Irish War of Independence, which was fought in Ireland between 1919 and 1921, between the IRA and the British forces, my great-grandparents hid guerrilla fighters in my great-grandparents' house, which again was near the beach in Balnamona in County Cork. And it was something that a lot of Irish families, as you probably know, did, hiding these flying columns, they were called, in order to save them and allow them to fight again against British forces in a kind of guerrilla-style warfare. My grandmother had so many stories about this time, and I was quite young when she passed away, and I often and frequently regret not listening more carefully or taking notes or recording her. And these stories that predominantly have been lost to history. A young girl considers her grandmother, Balnamona, 1921. 2 slipped stitches at the end of a row, nothing after my sister and me, 2 birds falling out of a tree. My grandmother sits at the window by the sea, knitted to her morning shawl, her hair a wispy halo of smoke. When she stands free, it's at 90 degrees, her bones brittle as burnt paper. I thought she was searching for something at her feet, admiring her reflection in her lace-up patent leather shoes. My sister's face shining in them too, 1,000 years from now. Those eyes, interrogation blue. She is so old, it makes me want to dig up graves. Peg, there you are, putting it all in place, pinning washing to the line in Balnamona. 18 and smiling wide with a mouthful of sky, secrets stuffed up your sleeve like cotton hankies, a brace of boys crammed up the chimney, flying columns grounded in soot. Your own brother in a cage, but the clothes are clean and your breath wordless and reliable as your knees are on the tuffet at Mass every Sunday. Those sheathed boys know your metronome heart, know you and all the Pegs. Margaret, Maggie, Peg, Granny, I am not a child but trying to be, or I'll rip off my skin with grief. Pages lost, photographs untaken, gunshots, standoffs locked up in delicate lips so fine and thin they let nothing out or nothing in. For now, I'll climb onto your lap as I should have then. Against bird bones, under your black shawl, I'll make a nest. With each heart pulse, time's loose threads unravel at my cheek. Tell me everything. I will be safe, like they were. And I imagine you standing tall and straight, aflame. The spine of my collection Eat or We Both Starve, is comprised of a broken sequence, I call it. It's basically poems that are all related to each other and could be put together in a sequence, but they're kind of scattered throughout the collection, giving it its backbone, I suppose. And it basically engages with the lives of saints and martyrs, all young women who, for various reasons and to various degrees, tortured or flagellated or starved themselves. In their case, maybe to emulate Christ, or to escape, perhaps more likely in our modern understanding, the fate of so many women, that they chose a different path, and how dramatic it was. Hunger strikes Columba of Raiti. My body is a temple I keep clean for you, spotless, lashing my skin so it grows tired of bleeding. Wearing hair shirts, I cannot forget what it means to be alert. I have toured the Holy Land in visions. I don't imagine they would understand what I see. When they came for me, the men, they ripped off my robes, expecting to find me virginal, untouched. How they gasped in horror. How glad I was that I had used myself like an old rag. Beating myself with that spiked chain shielded me. My breasts and hips so deformed, they ran from me, screaming. I went to an all-girls Catholic school, and usually in Ireland, in the case of all-girls Catholic schools, there's an all-boys Catholic school very close by, which is convenient and joyful for all teenagers concerned. But unfortunately, the school I went to was alone and isolated in the town that it was located. And the next boys' school was about maybe 15, 20 minutes bus ride away. So we were known locally and indeed in the nearby town as the Virgin Megastore. And so instead of obviously having crushes on boys we saw on buses, I certainly became very enamored and taken with the men in my history books, and fell hopelessly in love with Michael Collins and all of the Irish freedom fighters and patriots, something that I'm amused and equally perturbed by now. Cork schoolgirl considers the GPO Dublin 2016. I am standing outside the GPO in my school uniform, which isn't ideal. My uniform is the colour of bull's blood. In this year, I am 16, a pleasing symmetry, because I love history. Have I told you that? It is mine, so I carry it in my rucksack. I love all the men of history sacrificing themselves for Ireland, for me, these rebel Jesuses. I put my finger in the building's bullet holes, poke around in its wounds. I wonder if they feel it, those boys. I hope they do. Their blooming faces pressed flat in the pages of my books. I lick the wall as if it were a stamp. It tastes of bones, this smelly city. Of those boys in uniform, theirs bloody too. I put my lips to the pillar. I want to kiss them all. And I do. I kiss all those boys goodbye. This last poem I'm going to read for you is the poem that has been translated into Français so beautifully by the translators at VerseFest. And it was really such a thrill to see and read my poem in French, and how beautifully it was structured and how beautifully it read, even though my French is mal, isn't mal, très mal. So this poem is about a very famous astronomer in the 19th century, a little bit like Brian Cox now. And his name was Camille Flammarion, which I presume I'm doing a terrible job of pronouncing. And so he received many love letters and many propositions from many different women. And this is based on one of them. On the publication of Le Tiers du Ciel, 1884, dearest Camille, I want you. I want you to take skin from my back, my shoulders, skin that covers my breasts. The highwayman James Allen covered a memoir with his hide, a gift to a brave man he tried to rob. The judicial proceedings of murderer John Horwood are sandwiched in his largest organ. Anatomy texts are bound with the skin of dissected cadavers. De Sa's Justine et Juliette has nipples. I want to cradle Le Tiers du Ciel between my thighs, my soul passing from planet to planet, to be a citizen of the sky, cross its universe faster than light, touch that jagged lunar crescent, see Saturn glowing scarlet and sapphire. You think me frivolous. A society woman, you are wrong. I know constellations will reign in the noise before existence. Stars burn after our sun dies. I want a world covered with telescopes. Earth is only a chapter, less than that, a phrase, less still, a word. Let me carry it. Thank you so much to everyone at VerseFest and to the three incredible readers that preceded me. I really enjoyed all your reading so much. And so long from Tralee.
Oof. Oof. Victoria, I'm sorry. Isaac is left. So because everything's gone. I'm flabbergasted, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you so very much. Marvelous, wonderful, riveting. What I mean to say is the Atlantic is merely an ocean, I guess. And you are way beyond whatever wavelength would link you to us. Donc, Jean-Philippe, tout le monde, merci infiniment. Écoute, c'est absolument renversant. Formidable, oui, fantastique. Regarde, on les a, les épithètes, Jean-Philippe, là. L'Atlantique n'est qu'un océan, sans doute. Ouais, vous êtes parmi nous. Pas mal au-delà de la crainte et de la crête de toute onde. Merci infiniment. Sublime, sublime, sublime. Quel dimanche après-midi. And it's just getting started, guys. By the way, it's not by the way. You know what? You can buy our poets' books at independent bookstores, of course, also through the festival's links. And at this very token, well, the festival is still underway, guys. So at 7 tonight, we have the Hall of Honor reception featuring yours truly, whom you might see. And at 9 o'clock, the closing event. All right. So thank you so much for being part of this afternoon, for making my Sunday and Isaac's and my dad's by the same token. So thank you so much. David O'Meara, Monty Reed, Avonlea Fotheringham, I wish to thank you fondly from the bottom of that big heart of mine and of yours. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Bonne fin de journée.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to VerseFest 2021. This is the event called American Interests. My name is Monty Reed, and I'm joined by Veronica, who's here to clean up any messes we might make, and also by Ramon Sepulvedra, who's here to help out with our Spanish. This is the last day of VerseFest. It's been running for almost over a week now. And we've saved some of the best for the end. I want to say thanks once again to our major sponsors, which include the Trillium Foundation and the Canada Council and the City of Ottawa, the Ontario Arts Council and Canadian Heritage. And I also want to say thank you to all of our volunteers. We've hosted more than 800 readings over the past decade, and there wouldn't have been any. There wouldn't have been any of them without the volunteers that help us put them on. I'm delighted today that we have poets from Canada, the US, and Mexico. Now that the Three Amigos Summit is over in DC, we may be able to get some real work done. The point of the event is not to give any kind of overview of what's happening in our respective countries, but simply to